As instructors, we would like to hope that every student leaves our classroom with a great understanding of what we've taught. However, this might not always be the case. During the COVID-19 pandemic, many education programs had to be flipped online or to a blended model. There are a lot of great things about teaching virtually, but one of the challenges is that it's often difficult to tell if your students are struggling to comprehend the course material. In the physical classroom, there are often clues such as a blank face or a twisted eyebrow that indicates that what you said might have gone totally over their heads. However, in the virtual land of Zoom, quite often your students look like black squares on the screen. And it can be disappointing to both the instructor and the students to go through an entire semester only to find out at the end during the final summative exam that students were struggling. This is where classroom assessment techniques, or CATs, might come into play. Classroom assessment techniques are formative assessments that can be used to gain information on how students are understanding the material at different points in your course. Instructors can then use this information to adjust their teaching. The CAT that I would like to go over today is one called the Muddiest Point, because quite often, learning can feel like a treacherous trek through the mud. It's a simple assessment tool, and this is how you do it. Leave a few extra minutes at the end of your lecture. When you are finished, distribute an index card or scrap piece of paper to each of your students and ask them to write down the point in the lecture that they found to be the most unclear or confusing, aka the muddiest point. Give them about 3 to 5 minutes to come up with an answer and write it down, and ask them to drop it in the collection box or hand it to you on their way out. After you collect their answers, organize them into piles with similar themes. Maybe students had trouble with a certain concept, idea, or procedure. Using these responses, you're going to provide feedback to your learners. The next day in class, you're going to review this feedback. Let students know what were the common themes that the class was confused about, and then review these themes so that students become more clear about these difficult concepts. CATs can be used in all types of classes: small classrooms, larger lecture halls, even online schools. They are highly recommended for large classes that introduce a lot of material in each class, and I find them especially useful during virtual instructions where students are not in front of us for immediate feedback. There are a lot of pros to using this particular assessment tool. It doesn't require a lot of preparation, and it can be done quite quickly within a few minutes. The answers can be compiled and analyzed quickly as well. Another pro is that because the answers are anonymous, students may feel more comfortable asking questions, rather than having to put up their hand in class or emailing the instructor directly. The activity also encourages students to reflect on a regular basis. Reflect on the lesson, what they learned, and what they didn't understand. If the Muddiest Point is done on a regular basis, the outcome is that we've trained our students to become more self-reflective and to regularly assess their own work. Hopefully, they will be able to start doing this on their own in all of their work. Introducing formative assessments like this provides an opportunity for students and instructors to correct themselves before the midterm or final exam. So, does it really work? There was a study done by Howard where he incorporated this technique in his pharmacotherapy course of 83 pharmacy students back in 2016. He wanted to see if this assessment technique could increase exam performance as well as student satisfaction. After implementing this technique, he compared the exam scores on 4 exams between that year and the previous year. And what he discovered was that exam scores were unfortunately only higher in one course. There was no difference on the other exam scores and no difference in course failures. However, when they surveyed students at the end, they found that students found this to be beneficial to the course and a valuable use of time. They reported that it was helpful in preparing them for the exams. It increased their understanding of difficult material in the course, as well as increased their understanding of their own learning and study habits. A similar study was done by ACOG. They completed a qualitative study on 48 pharmacotherapy lab students who were asked to submit questions at the end of each of their labs. When the course ended, they were given a survey on how they felt about this assessment technique. The majority felt that it was beneficial and aided in their skills training. They felt that it helped with their lab skills as well as their understanding of all of the labs. These studies show that students find the technique to be beneficial even though it doesn't always translate to higher course grades. So now that we know that it works, there are some best practices we should follow if we are going to use this technique. The first is that the assessment should be not graded. This makes it not intimidating to participate in and a no-stakes assessment. It should be anonymous so that students feel comfortable responding, and we should try to share the results as soon as possible, ideally the next day so that the material is still fresh on their minds. We should reiterate the benefits and why we are doing this with the students so that they understand the purpose. And then lastly, we want to do this activity more than once. It is helpful to repeat this exercise so that students can develop their reflection skills and learn how to articulate their thoughts. Now, there are some cons to this technique, and the main one being it is difficult to focus so much on the negative and what they don't understand. This can feel discouraging to the students as well as the instructors. Perhaps you spent a long time explaining a topic and you thought you were being crystal clear, only to find out that several students found it to be muddy. Sometimes you will feel like you are at your wit's end to find another way to explain something to the students. I recommend taking a few moments to cool off before you prepare any responses or address the class. Although there are challenges that can occur, I think that there are far more advantages to using this technique than not. The Muddiest Point is essentially a lifeline to your students to allow them to seek help before it is too late. And in the same way, for you to receive feedback and adjust your methods before the semester has reached its end. I definitely plan on implementing this classroom assessment technique in my courses, and I hope that you will take the opportunity to do so as well.